Hello, everyone. You are now live on YouTube.
Thanks, Pat. We'll start the meeting here at 8:30. Morning, Ray. We'll go ahead and get started about 8:30.
Hey, Ray. Ray, how are you? Hey, Ray, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you had a lot of background noise.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, good deal. I'll find my mute button. Maybe.
Good morning, everybody. We will start the PLPW about 8:30. We are streaming live on YouTube currently, so just keep that in mind as we have these still moments.
Why do we have 6 unusable bowls?
They were um
Morning, everybody. Since we're on Zoom, we've got one member we're kind of maybe waiting for. Lee is not able to get on today, so he was the only one that I'm aware of. And if you've got a photo, wouldn't mind seeing your pretty faces. So I just want to welcome everybody. Hopefully you guys are doing a little better over in your neck of the woods than we are in Helena. We got a fire going and smoke and wind, and hopefully today's a little calmer and that can settle down a bit. We had a pretty tragic incident yesterday with a plane scooping water out of Hauser Lake, and that pilot lost their life trying to get a hold of this fire. It's in the belts and looked calm overnight, but it spread out yesterday pretty bad with the wind and really, really low humidity and tough conditions for fires. So, all right. So today we're going to get a little catch up on the status of the EHA, some of the fishing information for the private land fishing access program, a little bit of the status on block and pallet at this moment. And then right after that, we're going to jump into our recommendations and then a couple pieces of legislation, primarily one legislation and one new bill, and then the funding request for PALA going forward. So nothing new there. So we're going to start out with Jason and begin some of that review from FWP. So we'll get rolling.
Morning, everybody. Jason Cool, Hunting Access Program Manager for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. We're going to talk first probably about the elk hunting access agreements. Those were provided and approved by the commission. at their June meeting here a couple weeks ago. We had overall about 46 applications. The commission approved as the department recommended they approve. One of the things that happened again this year with the approval process is that we did have more applications in Hunting District 690 than we had the 690-20 rifle permit available. So not everybody who applied in that 690 for the 690-20 will be getting a permit. We just sent those to a post-commission random draw. So I think there's 3 landowners who applied that will not be receiving the permit through the program. Overall, I think it went pretty well this year. We're getting contracts back currently. The public hunter sign up is available on our website. You can do that the same way you sign up for the game damage hunt roster through MyFWP. And each property has a license or permit type available that you can select. And we'll randomize that list after the 15th. So it closes July 15th. Once that list is randomized, we'll make sure that those people actually do in fact also hold the license. That's been one of the things we found even last year. We'll get 400 to 500 people who sign up on one of those lists for a given property, and only 10 or less actually hold that permit or license. And so you may be number 40 or number 120 and actually hold the license, but you're number 1 really because you do hold that permit and license. We're not offering additional permits or licenses to public hunters, even though they may sign up and get, top spot, so to speak. We had a variety of properties across the state. Some still are open for general license, so residents, even if you haven't purchased your license yet, you could sign up for that opportunity. We'll allow those selected hunters to purchase that general license as a resident if they were selected and do sign up. And the same with the 004 and 005 elk B opportunities. There are some that are over-the-counter unlimited, just based off of what's needed for an elk B in that hunting district. And so, of course, those aren't on sale until the 12th of August. And so if they're selected, you'll have that opportunity to purchase that license. Everything else, you'd have to have that prerequisite permit or license to be eligible to hunt these properties. Drew, you have a question?
You're muted.
Sorry,
There
yep,
you
I had to find my mute button there. Hey, one question on that, because I went into the portal to look at that specifically. And that's interesting that you get that many people applying for it that don't even hold the license. I noticed that it looks like it's only applicable to people with the rifle permit, not the archery. Is that an oversight, or is that just we didn't quite think that one all the way through type of thing?
So a lot of the properties, they're based on what the equivalent that the landowner is receiving. So in some cases, I know there's like some 410-21s that the landowner is going to get that archery only permit. So then we created the public sign up for that 410-21 archery only. Same with the rifle side of it. So if the landowner is not going to use their 410-20, even though it may be valid during archery, if they're not going to use it during archery, their first season, their agreement start date would be for rifle, and that's where the public opportunity would then match that rifle opportunity. So it's kind of that, it's a little bit nuanced with some of those where, yeah, all you need is a bow and arrow and you could hunt the archery season. Whereas some of these, like I said, they're specific down to just general rifle season because that's what the landowner was requesting to use it for.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Sure thing.
So is that mostly, just to follow up to that, mostly an internal interpretation or directly through the landowner's preference for that opportunity?
So when the landowner applies, they have that option to select which season they're going to start utilizing that license for. And so, yeah, if they're going to only start it with the general rifle season, that's what we're looking for the public opportunity as well.
Dale?
Jason, question for you. The document that was sent out earlier that had the elk hunting access agreement proposal master list on it. On the far right column, it said program recommendations to approval, yes or no. I read that as being that is the department's recommendation as to whether these should be approved or not. What action did the commission take on those proposals where the department had recommended a no on them? Thank you.
Right. So yeah, the department, we go through all the applications, we look through the opportunities. We actually have a meeting with the director and director's office staff on, you know, what should be the situation here. If we differ from, you know, maybe the landowner saying, I want to allow like archery only, we'll go back to the landowner and say, well, that public opportunity isn't there in archery based off biologist feedback. Can you change, or would you change your application? As far as what's been approved by the commission, they approve as presented by the department. So if there is a no column, it would be a no. If there is a yes, it'd be a yes.
That's helpful. Thank you.
And Deb O'Neill just joined us. She actually presented it and was able to work through with the commission process as well. So along with the master list and the commission approvals, we did provide the commission with our elk hunting access SOPs. I provided that to the group as well. It's a more in-depth document this year that's available to see how we actually are running the program and how the program works. We also provided the summary from last year's program. So that is in your guys' packet as well, but is also available for the commission in their consideration.
Any other questions or comments on the EHA?
Go ahead, Dale.
In a nutshell, I looked, kind of glanced through, you had the 2023 guidance document and the 2024 guidance document. They're both 45 pages or thereabouts. In a nutshell, could you just summarize what is different between the two documents? Thank you.
Yeah, so the 2023 would be the evaluation summary. So it's the surveys and the summary of the successes or concerns from both public hunters and landowners from the 2023 program. The 2024 is the SOP document. It's how we're going to implement and run the program for this year. So that's kind of the main difference. The 2023 document actually is to help inform our recommendation to the commission as it goes forward. So if we had a property with a really poor experience in 2023, should they apply again in 2024, we have that understanding now of maybe our recommendation should be no to the commission. We didn't have any that reapplied in 2024 where it would have warranted that based off of the experience, but that's the main difference between the two.
That's helpful. Thank you again.
So Jason, in that regard, for those that we knew there was an inconsistency in how that was applied, and so then in 24 they didn't reapply. How would we catch that in 25 or subsequent years? Is that something that would be there for future knowledge, or just a year or two down the road?
We have the summary reports, but we're not sure what subsequent honestly means. We've had legal look at it and say, does this mean next year? Does this mean every year forward? Is it every other year? What does subsequent mean? And so that's one of the things we may want to look at with a rule change or something where it helps put definition to what subsequent means. Yeah, the summary reports is the extent of the knowledge.
So couldn't that just be an SOP that would be noted if those parameters hadn't been fulfilled by each party, the hunting party and the landowner party, that would be reason to not offer that program later at any time. Because we also talked about the potential of requiring the performance the year before the permit would be offered in those cases. Couldn't that just be in the SOP?
I don't know if you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, so it can be, and we do mention that past performance, but the problem is this word subsequent. Does that mean just the following year? It doesn't necessarily, and that's what the legal determination was. Doesn't mean just 1 year, or it doesn't mean all future years. So that's the problem. It is in the SOP, I believe, that we talk about past performance,
Right,
correct?
yeah.
So it is in the SOP, and that will affect their approval in the subsequent year or years. We don't know, and that's the problem.
So that just brings to my mind, the first time it's a shame on them, the second time it's a shame on me as we apply programs. So however you can do that, it seems to me, I mean, if you need a rule change, so be it. But if it's just a procedural, we interpret subsequent to mean any year thereafter. And the remedy out is let them perform 1 year and then we'll consider it the next year. It just seems logic to me from all these discussions we've had on this one exception.
And unfortunately, legal doesn't necessarily.
So the language is actually in statute that would say,
Yeah.
you know, they would not receive a future agreement in subsequent years. So subsequent is
the problem.
a statutory word. I don't, again, what subsequent means could probably be more defined in rule, but you got to be careful too there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have any comment on that? Subsequent meaning for future EHA.
And
It's Cindy. I agree with you. It seems like there could be some sort of rule change to clarify that, you would think.
And that's a commission.
Yeah, I don't know that it can be changed in rule unless.
There is no rule specific to that
Yeah,
language.
I don't
It'd be a
think it can
definition
be.
that-
It would have to be a legislative
Definition of
yeah.
subsequent.
Yeah, or not define
Future.
subsequent. We changed that word altogether, but I don't think it can be clarified in rule.
Okay, any further comment? Cindy, you still have your hand up? Okay.
Well, then if that's what we have to do, are we going to make that part of our legislative, a legislative change for this year?
Consideration. I mean,
Right.
we certainly could. We've identified it as a little bit of a confusion. So bringing clarity to what the intent is probably would be helpful. And sounds like it would clarify it for the department without any gray, potentially racing to gray. Okay, we can add that one. I mean, that's a pretty simple statement. Is everybody in agreement with that? I can't.
I would agree with that.
If anybody disagrees, would you please speak up right now? Hearing no disagreement, we'll make an addition to those recommendations as such. Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right, so the next thing I wanted to provide you guys an update on would probably be the public access land agreements. So at our May meeting in Billings, you guys recommended to the department to move forward with all of the agreements as you guys had discussed. the director took those under consideration, your recommendations. And then I know you reached out to Chair Beal about one of them, and ultimately settled on to approve those based on your recommendations. So we have good 90% of those public access limit agreements back signed for this year. The ones, of course, that started July 1st and we have a signed agreement back, those are up and available on the Hunt Planner. So we're still trying to chase a few remaining agreements for those as well. They'll all be, again, as we get agreements signed, they'll all be available for the public to view on our Hunt Planner. There's also another public access list on our website for access opportunities. What I provided in your packet was a kind of a budget summary on what we have for agreements, what we have for appropriations, and rolling those agreements out over time. Our fiscal budget folks helped develop this sheet, and so it's similar to what I provided at the last meeting in May. I just kind of consolidated it so that you could see out over time what that actually will cost us in terms of agreements. So currently for 2023's appropriation, we had $1 million appropriation starting, which meant we could start July 1st of 2023 rolling through 2024, and then same with July 1st, 2024 rolling through 2025. There's $1 million for our budget for the PALA program. Of that, we've allocated $810,785 for PALA agreements. That means we've funded all of our 1-year agreements, all of those 3-year agreements or 5-year that you've seen, but only a couple of years, 2 or 3 years of our 10-year agreements. We haven't fully funded all of our 10-year agreements. And so right now we have a remaining balance of about $190,000 to roll forward into the next fiscal year and the next biennium. However, if you look at the bottom number for FY26 and 27, which would be a part of that 2025 legislature and appropriation, we have over 580,000 of commitments. So we're already 400 and some thousand short. Should we roll forward without a new appropriation in the next session? So you can see again out over time, just we've got contracts that run through fiscal year 3033, but only have money currently. Should the legislature not approve in the next session our request to run through this current year, and it wouldn't even fund all of the agreements we already have. So that's kind of the PALA update.
Paul has a question.
Yeah, so on the budgeting, is this thing set to expire? Is that the budgeting on this? Or is there a annual budget set aside by the legislature on this? Or how does all that work, Jason?
So with the 23 appropriation, we were able to get it into our capital budget. So the money will sit there until it's used. So we'll have that 189,000 left to start next year's program with, but that's all we would have. So our request will go for the legislature to, again, ask for dollars to fund the existing agreements we have, but then also provide us space to grow the program into the next year.
So Paul, yes, we do have to ask for it every session right now.
So, and remember, that's for a 2-year budget cycle. So I guess my question in that regard, so then I think the original appropriation is $1 million, right? Do you have a projection? I mean, I see these projections based on what's already assigned with current agreements that are more than a year. Do you have an estimate for the projection? Would the ask be another 1 million for the biennium, or would it be different than that?
I think based off of Lena's discussions at our last meeting, she was looking at a $2 million ask. We haven't got that through all the approval process yet. And of course, you know, that could change, but that's what she's looking for, to be able to fund, you know, our existing agreements as well as provide space to grow the program into future years.
And that growth is based on sort of that trend on the growth since the beginning of the program.
Yeah, as more folks hear about it, the interest grows. And then we'll also look to try and implement our marketing campaign. We've done a few times. We didn't do it at the start of this year, but we've done it the year before and the year before that, where we've spent about $50,000 in marketing effort for radio, TV, print, social, trying to promote both the unlocking public lands as well as public access land agreements.
Okay. Dale.
Okay, just a couple of questions. Jason, did I understand that what's being discussed at the department is to ask for 2 million in the past, or in the last legislature, it was $1 million. You're asking for 2 million this year, or for the next biennium.
Yeah, that's what Lena presented at our last PLPW meeting.
Okay. Do you really think the program's going to grow that much? I mean, and when I look at your budget and I see what the outlying, you know, the years or the commitments are to out years, I understand, you know, that you've committed all this money, but at the same time, those dollars are committed. Is there a need for an extra $1 million? And then the other thing is a whole separate question, but I'll just throw it out now. If I remember from discussions that I believe you or Deb presented at one of our last meetings, one of the shortcomings of the PALA funding is operational dollars were not included. And again, I don't know if that's correct or not, if I'm saying it quite right. But if we are going to make a recommendation to increase the funding or have funding for PALA, I guess based on what I hear back from you right now and from the discussion from the group, I would like to make sure that we have some type of verbiage in our recommendation that requests operation, or some of these dollars be made available for operational expenses. Maybe you could address that. Thank you.
Sure. So well, Jason could probably speak to actually the need of operational dollars. I think we're falling short more than anything is capacity in our personnel, and ops doesn't support personnel. That would be a different ask. And the only way to meet that capacity or increase our capacity is increase FTE. And that would be a completely different ask. And we just can't ask for that extra FTE generally. So I'm not sure about operational dollars, the need there. Jason speak up, but really it's our capacity. And I'll go back to the $2 million that in the need that you asked about. If we don't use it in that biennium, like Jason said, it just sits there and we could use it for future years. So if there is leftover there and we don't see the need to ask for another 2 million or even another million in future years, we have that money doesn't get reverted. We keep that money there until we use it. So if the program doesn't grow as quickly as we think it will, we don't need to have another ask for 2 million in future years. If that makes sense. And if you want to address any need for ops.
Yeah, when the program was created, there was a set budget, a set aside of up to 10% of the appropriation being spent on administrative costs. I think in the 21 session, that actually changed and that language was removed, but we still have up to $50,000 of budget for operation expenses. And that's where, again, annually, so it'd be 100,000 for the biennium currently. And so what we can do with that money is then, again, like I said, the marketing pieces of it. As Deb said, we're certainly short on staffing to be able to really probably push that on the ground. It's not been something we've we've kind of just taken them as they come with those advertising pieces, but we also have to be able to account for it. And as you know, our access managers do a variety of tasks for a variety of programs. And so if we start spending these administrative dollars that have been set aside for this program on other things, it's ineligible expenses. So it helps in that sense that it's not in the language. But yeah, there's currently no separate operations budget for public access land agreements for our staff to be able to do mileage and meals and things like that. It all comes out of the same Hunter Access Fund. So if they're working on a block management area, they charge the same time and same operations. Same with pallets. It's just they're interchangeable at this point.
That's helpful.
You good, Dale?
I am. Thank you.
Rich?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Hey, just kind of following up what Dale, I had some questions on it too, and Dale kind of brought it up, so I'll just kind of maybe finish it or add to it. A lot of it, guys, reminds me of like what they've done with NRCS and stuff, where they've done these programs like EQIP, which are all about stock water developments, fence lines, and all that. But they have no staff, engineers, or technical support. So here they have all this money, all these projects are trying to get out to producers to use, but you can't get them approved. And then you default. You have to send letters to the state saying that I need to extend this a year, and it's not even your fault. It's because they don't have engineers to come out and look at stuff. And so the reason I bring that up is because it kind of brings these things into situations, and it goes back to points that I've made up a million times. I understand, Jason, the staffing, and that's a huge thing. But my big thing is just the enforcement, the management of the lands that are out there. Here you start getting all these people into this, and in my opinion, it becomes a free-for-all of people going everywhere and no management of the lands and no oversight, no following up to how the wildlife is reacting, how the pressure things are. A lot of things happen, and here we just thrown a bunch of money at just opening it up to people signing up for these PALAs. So not to rain on everyone's parade on it, but I feel like a lot of times we're putting the cart before the horse here on some of this stuff.
Thanks, Rich. Anybody else? Comment? Question? Paul? You're muted, Paul.
Yeah, I was trying to click off there. I'm just wondering, Jason, did you say they removed the 10%, or there's some funding available for administrative costs? Did they take that out?
Yeah, they revised the PALA statutes, and I believe it was the 21 session where that specifically was taken out. But we still have dedicated funding in our budget. It's just not explicit in the statute anymore.
So are you saying there's not enough funding for extra staff and all that now?
Well, the ops cannot be used for additional staff. We would have to ask for FTE across the street at the legislature to increase our capacity. So that's a separate ask for this. So right now they're just basically access is access is access. There's not a separate pot of money for FTE for PALA.
So I wanted to ask another question about the money that comes in from the outfitter preference points to the PALA program. I show over $500,000 in the last 3 years coming into the PALA. How does that fit into the budget?
So I have to get firm numbers for you, Paul, on that one, but mainly it would go to paying agreements, just like everything else. So I can't speak the dollar amounts that have come to the program and how much has been contributed in terms of actual contracts. We'll follow up with you on that one. But yeah, it'd be used for payments as well.
So I didn't know if that came into the $1 million budget, or how does that work when that set aside money comes in and it's designated for the PALA program? How does that figure into the budget? Do we have to add? I don't understand the procedure on that. You know, how does that get included in the overall budget of the, like we say, $1 million or $2 million now?
Right. So I'll have to follow up with our budget folks on that piece of it for you.
Okay, I'd like to see that, where it's going. Thanks.
Sure.
So just to follow up on that before Everett, so what is the base funding mechanism for PALA?
General license.
Right out of general license. And that's in statute as a percent or just a dollar amount?
Yeah, just a straight, yeah, there's just a
historically $1 million
straight
amount
dollar amount
coming out of license fund. Okay. So that does beg the question on the outfitter side of it.
Yeah, from my understanding, and again, I'll confirm, but my understanding is that when that outfitter preference point went into place, there's a collection over time, you know, last year and this year of those dollars, and then we'll know what that amount is to be able to contribute to the program. We didn't know year one what that would be, so they couldn't build a budget based off of what the allocation was going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we asked for a certain dollar amount, but we don't know.
It's new enough.
Right, exactly. So I think again, I'll confirm, but my understanding is that the idea is that we let that build over a couple of years and then put that into a pot for the program. But I can't speak to how much is, you know, a portion of that request. If it is 2 million, how much of that would be a portion of the outfitter preference point?
So I, you know, when we ask for 2 million or whatever we ask for in the future, those preference point dollars would be part of that 2 million. It's not above and beyond that 2 million.
Okay. You good, Paul?
Yeah,
Okay.
I know how much has gone into that, or supposed to have been gone into it, and it's a lot of money, $555,000. So I was just wondering how they're allocating it and how it's getting worked into the budget. That's all. So
Okay.
I'll wait to hear from how that's being applied. Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Paul. Everett?
Yeah, I was just curious, Ed, the point number 8 under our proposed recommendations, is this the one for more FTEs? Is this what we're talking about right now?
Yes.
I mean, I know we're not to the recommendations yet, but this is where we're at.
Yeah, that
Okay.
could be certainly part of that.
Yeah. I'm just curious, Stephanie, Jason, do you have like a wish list if you needed how many FTE? Can you give us an idea what that would look like?
So I don't have it in front of me, but we had the access managers basically do an exercise on how many FTE they would need to basically run the program, not just PALA, but their access programs well and successfully without putting a strain on everybody. So I have those numbers. I could look them up here and get them to you, but I don't know them off the top of my head, but they went through that exercise already.
That would be really good. I think it'd be enlightening to have an idea what that reality would be.
Yeah, basically they did a gap analysis of, and right now, I don't know if they're aware of the zero-based budget exercise. So
Briefly.
So the legislature last session asked POR to do a zero-based budget. We did it in also 2019, and basically it's taking down our budget to the studs down to zero and identifying where we need to put our money in. That sounds like building a budget, but it's a little bit different. Instead of At basing our budget on previous years, we're basing our budget on what we project we need. So we start with 0 and then fill in all these buckets with the need. And part of that also is looking at our FTEs. So we're working with Lena and budgeting right now to develop basically a gap analysis again on our needs for our budget and our needs for our FTE across all of POR. And like I said, the access managers develop that gap analysis as part of this. So this is going across the street real soon, the end of July, with all of our documented needs. So I can get those numbers for you.
Yeah, that'd be really helpful. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah, to your point, Everett, I think in all these things, I mean, the next question is with Block and Pala, what are the things we're missing in all that we've heard, and how do they overlap? Because they're administered by the same people, and they can only be administered based on the amount of time they have available to do that right now. And as we've all heard for years, this is an ongoing reality. At least the presence in the field during the times it's needed is pretty stretched thin, whether it's signing or policing or whatever the question may be. And they're so interconnected. Pala has its own side, Block has its own side. And I think you have to somehow address that collectively and beyond. And that's maybe where 8 goes.
Yeah, and I think a little bit broader scale within the department. I know we've talked about FTE for other places, education and enforcement, and I know that the legislature is so adverse to adding FTE, but there was a big push under Director Warsek for customer service, and these are areas where this is. I mean, it can't get more customer service than this, right? So I really think this is an area that we should recommend strongly, or whatever the words are, to say that, listen, this is something that really needs to start to happen. And if that means that, and I don't know if this breaches our scope, but if PLPW needs to write letters directly to the legislature or legislators to let them know about what we're doing, because they may not be aware of the discussions we're having in here, these are real critical places that we need more help within the department, I think.
So just to clarify, Everett, my hope is that we would flesh out these recommendations and any others, and present those first to the EQC, because you have a sitting committee that does hear these issues and needs to hear them. And then they can also be brought later in a different format if there's certain aspects that we want to drive home. At least from our recommendation, you need to be real succinct and not all over the place, but at the right place.
And I totally agree, Ed. I also want to be very careful here, though. We only have so much that we can ask for with the legislature. And, we have to look at the agency as a whole. And while this is a access is super important, and you're right, Everett, you can't get more customer service than these programs. But, we hear constantly that enforcement, for example, is, understaffed, and they are. And, to some extent, our IT programs are understaffed, and we rely heavily on IT here. So we only have so much that we could ask for across the street. So, we have to be careful where we ask for that. Looking at the agency as a whole, we can't look at, division by division. And so I just want to throw that out there so you guys understand that we have to be careful of what we ask for.
And yeah, Stephanie, I really appreciate the politics that are at play there. I just know that for so long we have been talking about these things, and I know the climate is just not, we don't get blank checks, but I also know that the department operates a little bit differently than the rest of the state government. So gosh, I don't know what we could do to be more of a cheerleader in this regard, because we talk about it and you get it from everybody here on the council that these are things that are critical and vitally needed, and then it filters through, and at the end of the day it's like, gosh, nothing's changed in 3 years that we've been talking about it, and that's just disappointing. And I'm not saying that's your fault or the director's fault or even the legislator's fault. It's just kind of, it is what it is, and I don't like that status quo. So I would love to see it changed. And gosh, I make a lot of trips to Helena myself, and I don't mind going and sitting on that committee at some point and saying, listen, we're talking at PLPW for years about this, and the legislature is just not moving. It's gotta change in some manner.
Well, a couple things ever. One, I'm Deb, not Stephanie.
Oh, sorry. I have a little tiny screen. I thought Stephanie was.
I figure. Stephanie is
Up next, she's on.
Is she? Okay.
She's on.
So the other thing is the zero-based budget exercise that they've asked us to do will really highlight POR needs on like I said, what we actually do and how many staff we need to actually do that. So I think that will demonstrate very clearly to the legislature that we're understaffed here as well.
Very good.
Okay, I see Rich has his hand up. I'm gonna try to wrap this up with Rich and then a final comment. Rich?
Okay. Hey, thanks, Ed. Really quick, I guess I just want to emulate what Everett was saying in all that. And I think too, and I don't know how it fits in there, but maybe Everett, since all of the things we talk about benefit PALA, I agree with you. I think the app and the IT, the enforcement and hunter safety are three areas where dollars should absolutely be spent. And if I'm repeating it or it's already known to everybody, then I apologize. But I guess I just wanted to follow Everett in that. And I think the maybe way to pitch that, and maybe it's through legislation, and maybe it has to be fixed in the statute, is that all three, if all three of those things are really good and we're doing really good with those, they will all benefit PALAs, because the app benefits hunters, but it also benefits landowners in terms of doing things correctly, getting good information. The enforcement is a huge thing for landowners, and then hunter safety, which I'm a huge supporter of, I think is good for not only just our kids, but it also shows landowners in our state that we're doing everything we can to educate our kids on how to do stuff correctly, which is a landowner part of that, and all of those benefit PALA. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Rich. I just wanted to add one comment about when Jason started, he was expressing the fact that the director had looked at all these agreements and considered all the discussions we had. I just want to emphasize that I find that to be quite true. And for all you access folks out there in the regions, he was directly concerned that the recommendations we made would be in unison with what you believed was possible and good for your region. So I just want to tell you that, because the questions he asked clarified that he wants to make the right decisions in how these are applied. So I mean, it's something we assume, but it was definitely there. So I just want to let the access staff know that, and this council know that. Okay. So we still have Block, but I think Stephanie Brown is on from Kalispell to give us a quick update on the Private Land Fishing Access Program, PLFA. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. So you are probably well aware that PLFA is part of the Access program now. During the reorg, the program was moved to fisheries into Access. So our regional access managers are managing that program. It is still fairly new to them, but they are very interested in getting this program incorporated into their suite of access programs. Let me give you a quick snapshot of where we're at. Hopefully my share button will work. Okay. If this is really tiny, I can make it a little bit bigger. I'll have to scroll a little. So PLFA has a $50,000 annual budget, and the way that it's been managed in the past is often we would enter an agreement and it would be paid in full upfront. So that's what this bottom half here is. And we would enter into agreements anywhere from 1 to 15 years. So these on the bottom are all of our current agreements that are paid in full. So those are good to go. They're being implemented and staff are working closely with those landowners. And then what we've been doing over the past couple of years is we've also been offering the opportunity for an annual payment versus the upfront paid in full. Part of it is for tracking reasons, but we've been entering into agreements for 1 year to 5 years, and that's what you see here on top. We have this one that is just an 8-month agreement. That's a new agreement, and typically with those like new agreements, we'll just enter into it for a year, 1 to 3 years, just to kind of give it a trial run so the landowner has the opportunity to see how the program works for them on their property. A couple other things just with PLFA. Over the last few months, we have been working to develop SOPs, so our standard operating procedures for the program, because it was in fisheries and now it's in access, just revisiting the way that we're implementing it. We will have some changes in the future that we'll need to make just to bring the program up to current standards. When the legislature first brought the program forward, some of the rules that we ended up making are kind of old and outdated, so we're going to want to update those here fairly soon. That's really the biggest update that I have. It's kind of been, I wouldn't say it's on the back burner. Staff are eager to get this going and incorporate it into their suite of programs, but they're also busy with EHA and PALA on top of block. So PLFA, while they're very interested in moving it forward, it's not one that they're able to necessarily push right now.
Questions, Dale?
Stephanie, just a quick question. I know Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has a lot of fishing access programs in Region 7. There's all kinds of ponds that are stocked periodically by Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Just this isn't really specific to your discussion, but just a quick question. Has that program also been moved to the access program, or is just the annual stocking of ponds, has that program remained with fisheries? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dale. That program will remain with fisheries. The only reason that I'm aware of that this was really moved to access is because when PLFA was first developed, they really did develop it based off of block management and wanting to offer landowners a similar opportunity, but access to fishing opportunity.
Thank you.
Rich, I see your hand.
Might have been left from before.
Maybe that was, okay.
Paul had a question.
Paul?
Sorry, guys, I forgot to lower it. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Paul? Might be muted. There we go.
Okay, got a question for you. Is this program fall under the Future Fisheries Access program?
It does not. This is a standalone program. It's the Private Land Fishing Access Program.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions?
Short and sweet. We can send this to you. It will be part of your report that Jason is putting together. So there may be a couple minor changes for the report. Right now, this is showing everything through, I believe, April of 2024. And we know that there are a couple other agreements that may be in the works.
So just kind of a question, and so that this is really the only program that this council has perusal over on the fishing side, correct? So it seems to me, I mean, when we look at all the other fishing access as totally fisheries recreation now for all fishing access sites.
Fishing access site falls under POR.
Okay.
The only thing, so fisheries manages the actual resource, not the access to the resource. So the private ponds is falls under them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will just add, our regional access managers do work closely with our regional fish managers when bringing on a new PLFA or even reevaluating existing PLFAs. So that relationship, it's a great opportunity just to get us out of our silos here and just to build relationships throughout the department.
Great. Yep. All right. Thank you very much, Stephanie.
You're welcome. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steph.
Welcome.
I did send this file out to all of you late yesterday, so you should have it in your email as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jason. So jumping back to, I think, block, just that summary, current summary on block.
Yep. Apologize, it's really small font. By the time you get 30 years worth of data on one page, it kind of gets really hard to make it big enough. But anyway, so with block management, I provided everything up through the fall of 2023, which is our fiscal year 24 program. Right now, of course, we're still wrapping up contracting for block management for this fall. The access guide cover has been sent off to print. The insert maps have been sent off to print. And Friday, all the inside text will be combined and developed into a proof. So we're right into the throes of getting all the public information out for block management. All of the information for block management for this fall for hunters will be up on our website. The easiest way to get there is fwp.mt.gov/BMA as in block management area. That'll take you right to all of the property maps, rules, access guide information, and all that's going to be available on August 9th. So the access guide, the maps, everything for this year's data will be up on our website August 9th. And so the public can find all that there. We'll continue to take guide requests weekly through the website, and those do get mailed out twice a week from the Bozeman Daily Chronicle. The data I provided in this summary table or the summary spreadsheet again runs through the fall of 2023. We're going to be right close on pretty much everything again for 2024. Our projections are pretty much the same acres and same number of landowners. Every year we gain some and every year we lose some. One of our ones we've heard about so far this year would be Region 6, where they're looking at about 27 new block management cooperators in the region. So we are growing, but then at the same time we also lose some, so the net is about the same. Dollars again will be about the same based off the new payment structure from last fall, and so everything is pretty much as you see, and as you've seen trend lines, it pretty much continues on through 2024. But again, I don't have final data quite yet, but we'll get that here hopefully by your next. If you have an August meeting at the end of August or something like that, we should have final data because we'll know all the contracts will be back and such by then.
Comments and questions? Rich?
Really quick, because I feel like we're behind schedule, but hey, Jason, on those block, looking at the charts and everything, I think that is interesting to see that the totals, I think when block first started and then everybody found it, it's kind of ranged in that 1250 to, I see the highest ever, the 1300. But of the people that are bouncing back and forth in those programs, I mean, has there been anything that stuck out as to why people move back and forth? Is it land ownership transition? What are the things that dictate that kind of core group of participants from bouncing back and forth that say 50 to 50 to 70 participants, on an average basis?
Yeah, really, it is, Rich, those land sales and generational change. That's been the primary driver of enrollment and or a decrease enrollment.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? We're all happy with block, huh? I mean, it's obviously a very interesting broad look at the history of it. There's definitely pluses and minuses. I think the thing that stood out to me, when this began, there were 247,000 hunter days, and now there's 640,000 hunter days. So the participation is highly valued for sure, even amongst all the challenges that the program has seen and continues to try to mitigate. So yeah, definitely the gold standard for access programs. Kudos to this department for navigating that throughout all these years with all these changes. I mean, we're always worried about it, but really when you look at it, it's pretty darn impressive how it goes forward as well. Any last comments on this summary for block? Rich?
Hey, sorry, get really quick. I was in this morning, and I'm sorry to jump back on everything. One thing back with the fishing thing really quick, Mr. Chairman, is that one of the people that's in Region 6, the Gordons that have all those fishing ponds, they had mentioned something about outhouses for people out there. With all the increased number in traffic of people fishing out there, that was something that she had just said. And Jason, you might have heard of that. Maybe she's mentioned that before out there, but I see they've got a number there. So it was just a quick point. I don't know how we address it as a group or if that's something in our wheelhouse. I had reached out to her yesterday and she just got back to me this morning on that. Sorry.
No, don't apologize. We have started to look at that with some of these PLFA sites where we're providing porta potties or cost sharing, or making sure that the landowner's agreement is at a payment level that can compensate for them to be able to do that. So it is something we've started to utilize in other parts of the state as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rich. All right. Was there one more in there? Or that wraps that?
That's the update that I have for the group, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, so then let's jump on to the biennial report, recommendations and legislation. And so let's start with the recommendation we made, and I forgot to make another copy of it, on the bonus point. We presented the actual language sometime back this year. January. Okay. But essentially it was to create legislation to authorize the issuance of one bonus point for the successful completion of the newly updated Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program, and we moved that forward as a council. So the next part is probably really checking the wording, finding a legislator that is interested in carrying it, which can be a little tricky right now because some of them aren't elected yet. But that would be where we would want to go with that. So that would be the council putting that forward to a legislator to draft a bill and move that forward. Do we need any further discussion on that at this point? Dale?
Yeah, just a quick question, and that question is this. What is the status of the Hunter Landowner Stewardship Program? Where is it at? Are we at a point down the road where it's going to be completed and approved, where it would be prudent to go to the legislature? Do we need to really wait until a project is, or this is closer to finalization? I hate to go to the legislature and make this recommendation, then it's 2 years out before we have a project that you know, the hunter landowner stewardship program before it's finalized.
Great question, Dale. I mean, it's
Not beyond what Greg provided.
It's-
previously.
the status, as I understand it, is it will begin to roll out voluntarily in the fall. And then this would come into play next year as an actual program. It's kind of like how the Forest Service rolled out their bear aware, grizzly bear rulings on camping in the national forests. So it was a soft rollout, I guess you would say. As far as I understand, that's still the status. What I would say to you is when we're looking at setting a meeting potentially for the end of August, I would say that that's probably a drop dead answer at that point in time to your question. And I agree with you 100%. If that program is not fleshed out at that point to its beginning, implementation, then we're probably dead in the water with that.
You could always put a delayed effective date into your language if that's what was necessary. Because just thinking through, it would have to be in the 25 session, and that may not have an effective date until March of 2026.
Sure.
Which would then give us time to update that course if it's not ready to be updated by then. But yeah, my understanding is as well that this fall is just going to be a revised version of the existing course with just some updated video content. It's not the full revised commitment that ComEd has made.
Did you hear that, Dale?
I did, and based on Jason's comments and your comments, that I think it's fine that we tentatively go forth with this recommendation or some iteration of it. But I think it's also contingent on what we learn at our August meeting to see if that is something we truly want to go forth with. And I guess going forth with it means finding a legislature that wants to take it and run with it. So that I think that's real helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think we have to have that clarity. And as Jason mentioned, the rollout date is going to be based on that. So we'll, as I hear it, we'll continue forward with that push to get that implemented. And I'll double down on having a more clear status by our August meeting. That good on everybody? Anybody has another comment on that, please speak up, or we'll go forward with that process at this point, or that plan. Okay. Yeah, and I think a final comment from me on that, as Everett mentioned with the issue of all the staffing issues and such, and then Rich commented on the education, this is such a circular reality that somehow we are helpful in bringing all that together, because it's all these pieces that are important to securing the success of the successful programs and improving the impact of the newer programs. It's a whole pie thing. And somehow I think we need to bring that together as a concise message. Maybe in the final recommendations we make, we bring those together to show their interconnectedness in creating the most successful relations and understanding of game management through hunters. I think somehow we need to word wordsmith that to make it most impactful. So, all right, thank you. The second is going to be, as we mentioned, our recommendation that the legislature approve the department's ask. And this is just a recommendation to the legislature. The department's request for the reappropriation for PALA. So that would be a direct, important recommendation that we make as a council to support that request for the next biennium for PALA. It's very clear. I mean, let's see. That was, where is that? Yeah, under B on the PLPW recommendations. Spending increase authorization for future 2025 plus PALA agreements. And again, we can word that out correctly to match what it needs to say. But I think that one's pretty clear. Does anybody have any further question or concern about our recommendation? Dale, you mentioned some that we know specifically, and we'll incorporate those at that point. Go ahead, Dale.
Maybe just a question for Deb, if I may, and that if I heard you correctly earlier, I think what I heard you say is that that appropriation would come out of license dollars. So if we go from $1 million to $2 million, what's the ramifications of that in terms of, are there plenty of dollars in licensing dollars, or does that mean a cut in another program? Because if it means a cut in another program, I'd want to know where what was going to be eliminated or reduced in order to up the payment for PALA. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. It wouldn't mean a cut in another program. There's a lot of licensed dollars. We're solid there. For now, you know, in future years, I can't say that for sure, without a fee increase sometime down the road. But right now we're okay, and it wouldn't mean a cut anywhere else.
Any other comments? Questions? So in our just previous conversation this morning, the other thing we noted that I think we should consider putting in this recommendation is the question of making that appropriation, and then how do we request that it's matched with potentially within that an increased annual total for administrative costs. I mean, we'd have to flesh that out specifically how to state it, but do we all want that included as part of the recommendation? Again, remember, we're just recommending that the legislature approve the department's request. And it's just simply that. We've looked at it a lot. We know why it needs to happen. So we're informing them that we believe it needs to happen. And maybe that's the caveat, is we put that statement in there to consider the administrative or seasonal access impact to implement it effectively. And we could address some of the concerns we've noted, whether like a lot of Rich's concerns with opening public lands, and then what follows and what's needed to address those. Comment? How about you, Rich?
I didn't know, Ed. Like I said, I'm on board with all that. I think it is something to, I mean, it's why I'm on here, to just, I guess, bring those about. I feel like everyone's doing a good job of trying to address all those. I think it's like you said, it's a big it's a big thing. And so when I usually, like I said, just speak very candidly about the things. And then I think we all work together on doing that. I realize it's not always a fast process.
Well, I think it's an opportunity for us to make that statement based on these years of hearing the concerns that have been created by this opportunity. So
I think, Ed, it's just, I think the fact that the committee is made up of a mix of all kinds of people from all different aspects, I think that's the beauty of being able to come with that one voice. And I think as long as we try to incorporate everyone's views into some of these things, even if it's just a small point, that we're all kind of like how we all kind of have to agree and move forward on things, that we kind of agree to disagree at times. So like I said, I think you just keep doing that.
okay, so I hear a yes. All right. Any other comments on that recommendation for the spending authorization for PALA? Seeing none, hearing none. So let's move on to other recommendations. The first one on the list that was sent out, and we've talked about quite a bit. We've actually sort of done it, but this would just be a written recommendation to the department, and just reading it, the Department of FWP access personnel to apply the PALA program to open checkerboarded public lands in applicable areas. Use this in the program as a proactive and cooperative manner with landowners. Discussion. Paul?
Can you explain what you mean by that? Go into a little more detail. What do you mean by landlocked? I mean, you want PALA agreements to open up neighboring landowners? Public
Well,
land?
PALA agreements, Paul, as we recall, PALA agreements open landlocked, inaccessible or under-accessible public lands by accessing that through a private land access point. And under PALA, those public acres are either lease held by that landowner that's offering the agreement, or they're not leased. There's no lease on them. And so we had discussed in the past a number of times about directly considering the PALA to address any of those issues, whether it's large or individual sections. That answer it?
What are we changing, I guess, or what do we want to change from what it was?
We're not changing anything that I'm aware of. We're just recommending that the department look at PALA for that specific purpose.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Dale?
What is meant by the word open?
You mean in this specific sentence?
Yes.
To open access, I guess. Do you have a different verbiage you would propose?
Well, I think you could strike the word open, because it just, to me, it's just, it's confusing in terms of what that means. I mean, PALA is an agreement with a willing landowner that has the lease. So if they're, I guess when I read it and I say it, open checkerboarded public lands, it would suggest to me open in this context means they're open to public hunting. So why would we have a PALA program? I don't know. I just find it a little bit confusing, and maybe taking the word open out would be less confusing.
Okay. So then they would read the Department of FWP access personnel apply the PALA program to checkerboarded public lands in applicable areas. Use this in the program in a proactive and cooperative manner with landowners. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not necessary. So we can change that wording if need be, for sure.
I think it's a good start.
Okay. Other questions, comments? So again, this is a recommendation we would put forward.
Raised his hand.
Oh, did you, Drew? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate that we're just trying to push the gas pedal down on this a little bit more, and we're trying to get out in front of what we know is an issue. And here's a good program that's already in place, and let's make sure that people know about it as a tool to help address potential conflicts down the road.
Thanks, Drew. Paul?
I'm just trying to find what documentation you're going from, on the handouts that you gave us. Where's this? Is this in something you sent out, Ed?
Yeah, I sent, it was just directly from me. Well, I sent one, geez, back in.
Yeah, I got that one. 7-3.
No, I sent one earlier, and then I don't remember when that was. It was before the 4th of July. Yeah, 7-3, and then one yesterday.
So we're talking about the one that came out on the 7-3.
Well, more specifically to wording, it's the one that I sent out yesterday.
Oh,
I
okay.
just re-forwarded that to you as well, Paul.
I got it. I got it here. I'm just trying to find out where we are in the discussion.
Number one.
And so what I would say,
Discussion.
Paul, just about this specific wording, again, assuming we schedule a meeting for August, we would send out final wording on any of these, any changes, and absolutely have them squared away at that meeting for final approval. I mean, to me, we need to get it worded out right now, but we can do the final look at that point too.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to see where we're at. Thanks.
You got it? Okay.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, thank you. So other questions? So on the question of making this recommendation, if you're all on, let's do a thumbs up if we can, so I can get a real picture. Let's see. Got most of you.
You can't see me. This is Rod. I'm thumbs up.
Okay, that's your hand, Rod. Okay.
I'm thumbs up.
Okay.
Thumbs up. Well, sorry, my camera's not working.
You're just showing off, Stephanie. We're jealous. Okay, so I'm going to call it. So Cindy, your thumbs up. Donna?
I'm thumbs up.
Okay. And Donna. I'm sorry, I heard you, Donna. Cindy, you're muted, so.
Yeah, I'm thumbs up. I don't have a thumb anymore.
Okay. All right, so I see all thumbs up. All right, so on that one, we will rework the wording and send that out in advance to get that more concise. Okay, and again, it's just our recommendation to the department, not just, but it is our recommendation to the department. Okay, moving on, item number 2. So this has been, if you recall our discussion about menus and such, but also the whole host of programs. So number 2 was PLPW, spit that out. PLPW makes a recommendation to the Department of FWP to develop the format to bring all access programs into one offering for landowners with the objective to focus and streamline access programs, the department process, and allowing landowners, cooperators to see their options in one menu to choose their participation while simultaneously streamlining the process for regional access staff to have one application and cut down the paperwork and time to make and process agreements. That was a mouthful. Again, we can wordsmith this to anybody's liking, but the general concept was to just make the recommendation to make the program offering clear and concise to the landowner in one sit down, and however it can be standardized for the access team to streamline it. Very vague, just a general recommendation. Questions? Dale?
So maybe a question for Deb or Jason. I like the concept of this. We've talked about it at several meetings, and I think it's, in concept, it's really good. My biggest question I have, when you look at all of the programs, are they all administered through the access program? Because if you have a program that's an access program, and then there's another one that's handled through the wildlife division or the fisheries division, does that create some conflict or hassle within the offices, the Fish, Wildlife, and Parks offices that are administering the program? Thank you.
So Deb can chime in as well, but from my perspective, all of the programs that we have that are first and foremost access related are under the POR, the Parks and Outdoor Rec Division umbrella. Certainly we have other access opportunities through habitat programs. And I think that's maybe where you're going, is like the Upland Game Bird Program, Habitat Montana, other potential fisheries opportunities where there is an access component, but they're first and foremost a habitat program. And so right now, everything access that is first and foremost access falls under the POR umbrella. But then, like I said, there's certainly other divisions that access is a side benefit, but that's not their primary intent.
No, that's what I wanted to hear. And I knew, like, Upland Game Bird Program was out of the habitat or out of the wildlife program, but I guess I was really focused more on all of the different access programs. I'm assuming they were administered through recreation, but it was an assumption. I thought I needed to just make sure I hear from you that, yeah, that is the case. That's where they are administered.
And another kind of a asterisk to that is that we're focused on private land access programs. So again, wildlife management areas, fishing access sites, other things that are department owned lands are the administration of the access is in POR, but what we're talking about here and kind of your guys' focus is our private land offerings to private landowners.
Further questions? So I guess with this, Jason, it's always been a question of how we can be helpful and not problematic in making a recommendation. I mean, we've heard many times the burdensome realities of paperwork and different timelines and such. So is this really a helpful recommendation? You know, we have talked about this many times, and that is it necessary to bring it to a recommendation to help focus that for the department or not?
From my perspective, I think it's a helpful recommendation. From a lender's perspective specifically, right? So we've heard from our ag industry partners with stock growers, with farm bureau, with wool growers, with grain growers, and other lender representatives even on the committee that we need one menu of options. We don't want to have to go back to the department 4, 5, 6 times for the different offerings. And I think from the access program, we would say the same thing, that it's easier for us to visit with a landowner once or twice and say, here's all of your agreements, or here's all of your options, whether it be PALA, block, EHA. All of those things combined, I think, help our implementation. Where the quote unquote rubber meets the road is that we would need to sit down and really focus efforts with our access staff of how can we make that happen in terms of one timeline for all of the programs. You know, clearly there's set dates for the commission and their timeline with EHA adoption. There's timelines we need for you guys to look at PALAS. There's timelines we need to be able to implement a block management fall program. And so it's really us taking the time and the effort to sit down and see if that's possible. And we haven't really put that level of investment into it yet. So I guess that's where I think, you know, from a concept, from an implementation piece, or helping the department to prioritize that effort, I think your recommendation is helpful in that sense. But then, like I said, on a higher level, we've directly heard from all of those industry partners that lenders want, and I can totally understand it. You want one interaction with the department. I get everything done at this point in time, and then that goes forward. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'll add. So back last winter, the director's office had a meeting with all the regional access managers and gave them basically an assignment and to develop a vision for the program. And one of the things they wanted to do was obviously consolidate access programs. So, you know, this would support them and their recommendation. I'll add also this zero-based budget exercise that we're going through. It's not just to identify, you know, what we currently do, but where we want to go. And so we've asked the access managers to also think about that when they're developing their budget, and how they want to see their program designed. So, and this is one of the major recommendations from them.
Okay. So any other comments? Now, Ray just sent an email that he's having a hard time with sound or caption. Are you able to hear us now, Ray? You appear to be muted, but I'm just checking with you now. Okay. If we can get you back on there, I'll have you jump in. Or no?
Are there captions? Yeah.
Okay. That was just to let Ray know. I sent him an email too, but maybe we can see what's going on there. Should he try to get in? Okay, so let me send Ray a quick reply. Okay. So I think what it sounds like is it is a good recommendation. Again, we may need to look at the wording specifically to make that most effective. So with that in mind, I think I'd just like to see again a show of support for recommendation 2 from everybody. So thumbs up. God.
Rod again, thumbs up.
Thank you, Rod.
Rich, thumbs up.
Okay. Paul. Got everybody. Paul. Okay, I see everybody. Stephanie. Just raise your hand or thumbs up. Okay, we're good. All right. So item number 3, recommendation to the department. Communication education program to double down on the hunter ed programs to better inform hunters of their roles and responsibilities in the opportunity of hunting. Place strong emphasis on the roles of hunters, particularly in regards to relations with landowners. Any question on that one, on that recommendation? Dale?
So I guess my question is this. We've heard from Greg Lemon and others from the department. From my perspective, it just seems like Fish, Wildlife, and Parks has put a huge amount of emphasis into this in recent years, and it continues to be a huge area of emphasis. As a hunter ed instructor, it's a big part of our hunter ed program in Region 7. Because of that, I'm just not sure what value our recommendation. I mean, it recognizes the need for it, but I just kind of feel like it's something that's already being done at a level that's it's probably at a capacity or close to a capacity of what the department can. And I can't, of course, that's my perspective, but I think they're working really hard to achieve this. And I just don't know that there's value added into putting this into a recommendation. That's my thought. Thanks.
Thanks, Dale. Donna?
Sorry, I didn't take my hand down since the last vote, so.
Oh, now you got a comment.
Well, I don't, I kind of agree with Dale on that. In the Hunter's Ed is such an important program, so, yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? About it, Everett?
Nothing just yet, Ed.
Okay. So with Dale's comment, should we strike this recommendation and consider just deleting that recommendation? How about that discussion? Cindy? Do you have a comment or?
I'm kind of with Dale.
Okay. So I don't see other comment, so. Paul's got his hand up. Paul?
I agree with Dale. Let's just strike it.
All right, so recommendation 3, we would just drop that. So on that case, let's see a show of hands or thumbs that we would just drop recommendation 3.
Ed, could I real quick? I apologize. I thought we were on 2.
No second chances, Everett. Absolutely not. Okay, we're already voting. Speak your piece, Everett. We're vote. Let's just vote and see how we are.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we drop 3 at this point. So we've got everybody. I don't see anything from Drew. I've got drop it from everybody but Drew. Is he up there? Okay. All right. Okay, so we're gonna drop 3. Thank you. Now, Everett, do you want to make a final comment?
No, I think we can address this in other ways. I'm not sure why I thought we were on 2 still, so maybe I missed something there. But I do think this is a really important topic issue that's got to be fleshed out more and in other ways. And I think we're doing that in avenues. So I'm not real hung up on keeping it in there as a recommendation. There's other things that we're doing to get into it. So that's fine.
Okay. All right, moving to number 4. Recommendation number 4, I'll read. The Department of FWP set a timeline for implementation of the FWP phone app and FWP website improvements. That's the main recommendation, a timeline. The objectives of these online platforms are to enhance communication to hunters, timely notices, enhance harvest and other survey capabilities, and to enhance access to access rules, among other things.
I have a question.
All right.
Chair, the question and just a comment on this. I guess first the question is FWP website improvements. Do you mean the OLS or do you mean the actual website?
That's the question.
Oh.
So I think it's all the above. I mean, I've been asked the question from the department, are hunters getting enough information, and what information don't they get? So the question is, all the information accessible on either an app or on the website? To me, that's the question. Is it all have continuity and they can, it's kind of like the block. We're moving from a pamphlet to online, but there's really no seamless transition. So that's the question to me. I don't know if that helps at all.
It does. It does. Because the OLS and the phone app, we do have timelines for right now. We have different phases for working on them. Just the actual website improvements, we don't, and we can pretty much do that anytime. So I just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
But yeah, the phone app and OLS, ALS, we actually have timelines for in different phases right now.
So questions, I don't know who was first there, so I'm going to pick Cynthia.
My only question with this is, remember we got that briefing, I keep harping on this, about inputting the data. Is it going to support better input of the data from the coordinators?
Well, I think we're kind of talking different
different
things, maybe, Cindy, apples and oranges. So one being, if you're focused on block management and hunter response and or survey data specific to an individual property, that some kind of technological improvement there would be necessary to do that. Again, I'm not sure if those are built into the existing app plans or the timelines on kind of that stuff. So where my mind goes is a digital sign-in piece for type 1 BMAs specifically that would help efficiencies in streamlining time, effort, cost. There's also the reservation component, so we're working through trying to develop online reservations for block management as well, and that also will improve block management, survey responses, harvest responses, and other things that you guys are statutorily required to report on. That's kind of where my mind is going with that piece of it, but I think you guys are talking more just general hunter information stuff.
I understand that that's what this is generally addressing, but I'm always concerned about the input because we are putting such a burden on the coordinators to input the maps and all that for block. Are we going to improve that part of the web?
I mean, I don't know this side of it at all. Do you?
We don't currently have I guess I would have to follow up with our IT folks on if more of a digital sign-in for block management is a part of the app timeline and what that looks like, if that's what you're thinking.
I'm not sure what
It's not about sign-in. It's about the coordinator inputting the maps into the database, along with the instructions for block. If you go on the Hunter Planner, that's what you see. But that process for your department people is labor intensive. We got a briefing on that a year ago. And I'm asking if we are in some way advocating some improvements to that process.
I would think that would be part of the intent, is to, I'm just trying to recall all of our discussions and all those points. There's survey data, Hunter Harvest surveys that are done on phones by call-ins, which are as complete as they are. So that's relates to all kinds of things. And then there's Hunter access information that typically has been printed in pamphlets and still in the block SOP is still a significant part of communicating block opportunity and PAL app or opportunity. So to my mind, from what we've talked about, that would be part of this, and maybe it needs to be more specific to those objectives. Does that help, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm just concerned about just inputting the data so people can see the data. You can't have a block management area without having the map and the data that goes along with it. And somebody in the department, the coordinator in each region, puts that data into the database. And it's very labor intensive. I'm just trying to advocate that we do something or try and do something to make that less intensive for the coordinators. Thank you.
Simplify input of data for access coordinators.
Yeah, because right now you're right, Cindy. So we would have an agreement that is drafted in our internal application that has a set of rules. Those same rules then have to be manually put onto a individual PDF map. Those same rules have to be put into the access guide itself. And so there is opportunity to streamline and create efficiencies by doing that activity once versus 3 or 4 times and trying to manage that data in 3 or 4, 5 different places. So yeah, specific to block management, where I was coming at with the digital sign-in piece is that instead of us manually counting coupons, that data would be captured right then and there. And so that's also an element to this. And having that digital sign-in would then allow us to know who signed in, when they did, where they were at, as far as which box. And we could tie that back to survey data. So rather than us, again, manually counting satisfactory coupons or getting a low response rate on coupons, we would be able to tie that back to the agreements. And so it's just really a streamline of the whole system and whole process. We haven't.
And I agree with that recommendation. I just want to bring up the other part of it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. Everett?
So I do have a couple of thoughts on on this, as we have it worded. I would say the department set a timeline, comma, publicly publish, comma, and regularly update monthly, if we can include that, for implementation of the phone app and the website improvements. I'm on the website right now for my FWP app, and I don't see any of the phases or information about what's coming next or when or anything like that. And frankly, I know I've asked for this for about 3 years now. So I would really like to see something in on the website that we can know what's going on with this. And so I don't know. I think publicly publishing is really important. It needs to be out there, and then it needs to be updated. And I mean, gosh, monthly would be my preference, even if it's to say nothing's changed.
So are you, for clarity for me, Everett, are you talking specifically about access opportunities?
No, I'm speaking to I know we've got stuff on the website that we're doing that's coming down the pipe with the reservation system and whatnot. I know there's a lot going on with the phone app, but if you're outside of PLPW, I mean, you don't have any idea what's going on anywhere with it. So I would love to see that put out on the website somewhere on what's going on with the development, what we're planning to do next, and when we expect to see that.
So from what I understand, I'm just questioning where that goes, because when you look at updates, if you're on FWP's, my FWP, and you receive email updates on whatever's happening, whether it's a water closure or grizzly bear or whatever, isn't that where that would go rather than in the app? Or
I'm talking about the development of the app, not like push notifications or fire closures or things like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Ed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to see push notifications within the app for sure, right? We've talked about that. Wherever those alerts are put on the website, that's great too, right? But I would really like to see a more robust app, and I don't know that we have that or when we're going to have that.
Yeah, I understand. Any thought on that, Deb?
We contract out for this. We already have the phases set. I guess whatever you're asking is you want to see that. I mean, we do present to EQC when they ask for updates on this, and we're definitely going to present to the legislature on the XMT and where we are, because they gave us $10 million to do this. But you're asking more of a publicly available update, and
Well, yeah, I mean, I would love to see what's going on and what's next. I'm really concerned that we have allocated $10 million, but what we have is essentially a digital wallet for our licenses and not much more. And this has been a topic since I've been on PLPW and before then too for me, about where we're going and what's next. And I mean, again, general sportsmen don't know.
Okay.
well, that certainly could be a recommendation.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Everett. I did make a note of it. Other questions, comments within this recommendation? Seeing or hearing none. So the question is to go forward with a recommendation to the department on the implementation of the phone app, OLS website, all the above. So to change this wording to fit that, do we want to move that forward? So again, thumbs up, hands up, or not? Okay. Rich and Paul. Okay. Paul's up. So just Rich. You good, Rich? Okay. The only one I don't see is Rich. So I'll take that as yes. How about this? Let's take a quick break before we go on to the next items. And maybe we'll have Rich back then. Okay, so I've got everybody yes, question on Rich. Let's take till 10:30, 7 minutes or so. 6 minutes. Okay, and then we'll be right back. All right, we'll get rolling again. Let's see. I see 3 hands up, but I'm suspecting that's from the last vote. Cindy, Donna, and Rod. Did one of you have a question?
Maybe they're not back yet.
Probably not back yet. Okay. Give it a minute. Did I already tell these guys about finding $20 in the Safeway parking lot last time? No. All right, I'm going to start you out with this wake-up call. I don't know if I already told you this, but if I did, Dale can stop me. I see he's there. So I was over in the Safeway parking lot the other day and was in the store, and when I came out, I found a $20 bill on the ground. And I picked it up and I thought, what would Jesus do? So I thought a minute, and I took the $20 bill and I walked back into Safeway and I turned it into wine. All right, now you know. Oh yeah,
like
thanks, Drew. Yeah, I know.
I like it.
I know. Okay, got to have a little miracle once in a while. All right, jumping on to item number 5. So this is a real question. So to preface it, item number 5, we did talk about this quite a bit, and actually I think, if I recall correctly, Mr. Logie, Representative Logie, said he thought he could do something with this. Again, we don't know if he'll be elected, but this was the question of, do we make a recommendation to the legislature or the Department of Education, considering a school curriculum program that educates students on the agricultural community positive impacts on land stewardship, conservation, and game management and hunting heritage. That's kind of my recollection of the discussion. So is this anything we want to put forward? And the reason why I put question marks, it really is the Department of Education thing. Where can it go? So for discussion, Donna, I see your hand. And you're muted.
Nope, I had a phone call I just returned.
Okay. Did you have a question, Donna, or no?
No, I didn't. I just keep voting.
Okay. Thanks for your votes. Dale?
Reading number 5 and number 6. So my comments are kind of specific to both of them. Is it something that would be nice? Yeah, I think it would be. But I also look at those and I just feel like they're really kind of beyond what I view as the role of PLPW. I also kind of believe that if we taking those and moving them forward, it somewhat dilutes our other recommendations. It just seems like we're kind of out there a little bit on 5 and 6. And I guess for those reasons, I just don't see the value in it. And again, it's not to say they're not important. I'm just not sure that it should be the role of PLPW to go down that path. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Let's hear some other discussion on these. Everett?
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of a lot of different education opportunities, and while it might not be within the scope of FWP, certainly cooperating with Department of Education, legislature, whoever it needs to be, I think could be something that we could recommend that they do. I love the idea of in Montana's state curriculum, something that talks about our hunting heritage, the way that we do wildlife conservation and management, and how it's so vital to who we are as Montanans. And I would love to see something like that placed into the school curriculum. And and again, it may not be within the scope of the department, but certainly cooperating on it and finding ways to get that done would be great. Um, and I do think it's within the scope of PLPW. You know, we're here to talk about issues that might be difficult and that certainly pertain to how we do wildlife management in the state. And I think it's so important as you look at anti-hunting activities that are happening around the country and the impact that they're negatively having on access and opportunity, and ultimately to State Department funding for what we're doing with licenses, sales, and whatnot. So I think being proactive in that regard could be really, really good. I know that this is not this wouldn't be a precedent. I know other states do something similar to this, so we could research that and get something going on there. But I think this would be really, really good for the department and for the state.
Thanks, Everett. Stephanie?
Sorry, I'm just back and forth on my hand. I would agree with Everett. I think it is pretty important. I think with the success of that last Montana Outdoors issue that kind of explained agriculture and whatnot, it was such a well-loved issue. I think if we could, kind of dovetail that, what agriculture is in Montana as well as our hunting heritage, I think that would be a great thing to add to the curriculum.
Thanks, Stephanie. Other comments? So I'm just curious. About Donna, do you have any thought in this regard?
I just don't think we can talk enough about hunter heritage and in respect to the landowners. So I really think that's something that we should take a forward step in and promote. And so I do really think as members of the PLPW, when we're representing hunters, landowners in the outfitting industry, I think history is an extremely important thing that we become involved in and promote.
Thank you, Donna. Drew?
Yeah, one of the issues that we hear time and time again, not only here, but in lots of other forums, is hunter behavior. And this is a continuation of one of the ways to address that at the level where it's going to be impactful. And I think Dale brings up some really good points, circling back and going, is this in our scope? And questioning that. We questioned one of the points previously, and we ended up striking it down because we ultimately agreed it wasn't the right fit or the right time. Our number one and number two industries are recreation and agriculture, 1 and 2 right there. So integrating this into an educational piece and putting our recommendation behind it, I think this is absolutely appropriate and something that we should consider moving forward.
Thank you, Drew. Additional comments, discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. I think it's interesting that Stephanie mentioned Montana Outdoors, because that was my take on that article. It was kind of like a short course from a person's point of view that didn't know everything about it. And I thought that was really interesting, you know, from the discussion of everything in ag and on. So I had that same thought about it, and I hear it a lot where I go and talk to landowners. So some of you way back, we heard a presentation on the state of Missouri's education program. I think it's their DNRC, if I recall, but they have a very rounded, they get their funding through sales tax. So I think what they do is a percent of their sales tax. They educate their population on why through a curriculum in the elementary schools. And I found that to be very interesting because there was no downside to that. I don't know if any of the rest of you, maybe Dale or Cindy and Lee, I think maybe we heard that, or maybe it was before. So if we could explore this, again, the question is how, where. I think it would be a good impetus if we can figure out how to bring it forward in a way that might be meaningful. Realizing what Dale mentioned, it's kind of, you know, we answer to the governor through the director, back to that, and the legislature. So how do you even bring that forward? And I think we could kind of figure out how we could do that. That would be helpful. So I see Rich has his hand up, so I'll stop there.
Okay, well, I don't want to take much time with it too. What you know, with in our schools, like here in Big Sandy and stuff, you know, the VOAG teacher, you know, they cover a lot of stuff. Is that an avenue to, when we talk about education or getting in there, would getting to our, you know, because we've done things like 4-H, FFA, and all of those things we've tried to kind of coordinate through our VOAG and our shop teachers and things like that. And I think that might be an avenue. I know everything from small engine to whatever, but geez, they come out to our ranch every year and do a great land management and grazing thing, which is through through their VOAG class. So that maybe there's an avenue there with giving VOAG teachers the opportunity to add something like that to their curriculum that those teachers might enjoy, you know, sharing with their students.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Other input? Okay. So I guess what I would suggest then is that maybe a few of us get together and flesh this out a little more between now and our next meeting, and see if we can come up with something that's more direct, where we would go with it and what it would be. And maybe we can make some contacts in the Department of Education to just find a way and see if there's a way. Definitely VOAG is so obvious, it's right in front of us. So if everybody's good with that, what I might suggest is we move it forward, item 5, for further, I guess you say, research into how we could move it forward between now and August, and see if there's something concrete where we can make a recommendation. So
Mr. Chairman,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but I think that the way to move ahead, I think, would be getting in touch, because I think there are some, you know, through the Department of Education, there's some probably protocols there, things like that. I think having a contact there would be a great first start, and I think we'd learn a lot right then at that point as to what, you know, what direction we would have from there. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Rich. So in that vein, does anybody on this council have a direct contact at this point in time with the Department of Education? Just question. Don't see one. So so we won't necessarily vote on this time. I think if you're all good with that, we'll flesh this out a little more and see if there's a direct way to take this and bring it for an August review and recommendation, if that's okay with everybody. So if I don't see an objection to that, so if you do object, please raise your hand. Then that's what we'll do on that one. Okay, so that is item 5. So we'll jump on to 6. And again, this comes from the background is from these realities we've talked about. You know, like Paul asked Jason this morning, right? Was it Paul or was it Rich? About changes in these numbers on block from the beginning to now, and the reality that those transitions have been the biggest challenge to maintaining those contracts. So that's where that came from. So recommendation 6 was landowners, again, question marks, where landowners and realtors consider how they can be proactive in creating probably better understandings on the land with the sale of working lands within any agricultural geographic community. I know that's tongue twisted, but and we can definitely change the wording of this. So open that up for discussion. Thoughts, comments? Rich?
Yeah, as I read it again, it's probably a very challenging thing to really do because I know realtors would kind of do their own thing. I think when it came about, it was just looking for ways, and I just have personal experience about it now out where I live, where I've had 2 new landowners come in right next to block, to not only block management but DNRC, BLM. And actually, the one, they've put in new fences, they've done some really great things, but they don't know anything about any of these programs or anything. And so maybe this one ties again back to that education component, or how we better educate, or like Jason, or putting this into, say, one kind of one-stop shopping. I mean, I think increasing all of those things will probably make it better for a realtor to be able to hand that information out to prospective buyers, things like that. So I just think it's just shocking to me as these guys come in and buy these things, they know nothing about any of these programs, or they haven't looked at it, and no realtor has ever brought it up to them. That's in just my conversations.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah.
Additional comments? Crickets.
I'll step in on this one for a second. I mean, I think the realtors, and I'll just say this from my own experience, right? I think realtors aren't bringing these programs up because this clientele doesn't want these programs, generally speaking. Back to Everett's point on technology, if we are better able to communicate these programs from the department, and we can geo target, or we can some sort of special targeting with our digital messaging to these people, that's where we're going to find them. We're not going to find them with a pamphlet via a realtor.
And hey, just to jump in really quick, Drew, because I agree 100% with you on that it goes back to the app and IT enforcement and hunter safety. If we take those resources and efforts and go towards making those better, it will automatically trickle down to that. So 6 could almost be eliminated if we focus on those others.
I would concur with the good man from Big Sandy.
Additional comments? So interestingly enough, yesterday, Cindy, go ahead.
You just wanted someone to comment, right? What's the harm in having a pamphlet? Here are some, programs that will help you make more money on your land. If they'll hand it out.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So yesterday, just by timing luck, I had 2 members of the Montana Realtors Association walk in the store and ask me for something. And when they were done, I said, I have something to ask you. And so one of these individuals is the new marketing government affairs for that association. And so I posed this question, and this person is new, so they're not really aware of the entire realities in the landscape. But I will tell you, seemed interested and willing to discuss the question, which was just opportune. I mean, I didn't reach out to them. So again, I think from your comments and our discussions, I think it's a matter of, can we find a way to increase the awareness of these challenges at that point in time when that transaction's beginning or wrapped up, wherever is appropriate. Additionally, I was down, Donna had invited me down to Alder last month, and it was the Western Landowners Alliance down in Alder. So when you look at the game management realities and the elk realities and the brucellosis realities and the land transition realities and the new hunter realities, those folks are, my eyes were opened on the rapidity of the change in that Madison Valley area, whether you're on the east or west side of the Madison. I never looked at it that way before until listening to them. And they were, I guess you would say, inquisitive about this particular question on these transitions. And there was one smaller landowner who was definitely impacted by someone who moved in, and elk are an amenity. That's my interpretation. He said it in different words. So I think it's something, if we can figure out a way to move into it, that's, again, helpful. I don't know the venue, but if we can form something, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a report to anybody. But if you're all good with that, I think we should continue to pursue some focus on it. And maybe there's an opportunity because of the fact that it's happened more rapidly in the last 5 years or so than previously in Montana's history. So where do we go with that? Again, it's a big double question mark. Where do you take that? I mean, so maybe a few would like to be part of just fleshing that out again as 5 to bring something a little more clear in August. And I would probably holler at a couple of you to do that through an email if that sounds agreeable to everybody. So if anybody has an opposition to going forward with fleshing that out a little more by August, to see if we can make a better statement and know where we would go with it. So if you do have an opposition to that, would you speak up now or raise your hand? Dale?
I guess and maybe it just needs to be fleshed out. Again, I'm just not sure what this will buy us. The realtors that I know, they're in the business of making land deals. I just don't see them coming and telling a potential buyer and saying, oh, by the way, you have public land next to your place and or on your place, and it's accessible by, it's publicly accessible, and just know you're going to have hunters in there. I just don't know how much And in my thought, I think very few realtors are going to have any interest in being a part of this. That's just my thought, and it just seems to me like tasking the department with putting something together that at the end of the day is going to have very little value or acceptance, you know, especially with the realtors. I think there's a better use of their time and our time. Thanks.
Thanks, Dale. Yeah, and I think if I recall one of our last two meetings, speaking with all the access managers, if I recall, it appeared to me that they're as proactive as they can be when those transactions happen with trying to impart that information. I believe that's the report we were given, maybe it was last time, when we discussed this question. So I think the department is doing what they can do. To me, it'd be more a matter of, can we make any progress with that awareness? I mean, you've got to admit, when it happens, the rest of the neighborhood landowners have a problem. And I never heard it so succinctly, and I've heard it many times as you have, as this last group. They weren't at a FWP meeting, they were at a Western Landowners Alliance meeting. And so they were very open about each of their problems, and it was very informative how varied those problems were, but many of them evolved around these types of changes and how it impacted their place. So I don't know. So Dale, is that a hard no on fleshing this out a little bit more, or is that I'll go along with it and see what we come up with for next month?
I'm fine with going along with it.
All right, thank you. Any others? Okay, thank you. So we will work on 6 and see if we can come up with something beneficial for that. Okay, then I would like to jump from 7 to 8. That was in the second email, Jason. So this is, as Everett pointed out, we discussed about this earlier. So 8 was the question of appropriating more personnel or budget dollars to the access program, staff budget. That's the core of it. And then the rest is kind of the statement about it. So that's a big one, no doubt about it. I mean, it's a big discussion that we've heard, all of us, for much time. So I'd throw that open for discussion on how we would move something like that forward. Dale?
So in concept, I'm fine with this. There's one big concern I have with it, and it talks about the Matador, elk management. When I get out in eastern Montana, or out here in eastern Montana, what I hear from a lot of landowners are not specific to elk. And I would really like to change the wording to get away, to have it be a elk-centric issue and just have the discussion be more FTEs to support the access programs. Thank you.
Okay, noted. Everett?
Do we need a second or a separate recommendation for FTE for enforcement? Or do we just add enforcement to and access programs?
Good question. They're definitely two separate realities, two separate budgets.
So do we need a recommendation for number 9 FTE for enforcement?
I'll put that down. And let's tackle this one. Okay. And then see. Is that okay? Rod?
I'm with Everett on this one. We need to really help support the FTE on enforcement because they are so understaffed. I'm not going to sit here and tell, the access people that they're not. I know they probably are, but the enforcement is like off the rails, understaffed. It seems they keep losing them. So I'm with Everett on that one. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments, discussion? Paul?
I'm with Rod on that too. I think we need to do that, but they're two separate issues, so I support looking into that too.
Okay. Others? I'm gonna call on everybody. So Rich, what's your comment?
I don't have a comment. I just support Everett and I'm Rod on that.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I just support what Everett and Rod had to say about it. If that helps.
Okay. Drew?
Yeah, our last presentation was it the last meeting we had that presentation from who was our warden contact that came in and talked about all of the updates and the hiring?
Yeah, we did.
It was in the last meeting. Well, they're all jumbled together now. I would support both. And just, reflecting back to that last presentation we had on there, it was good to know that I think maybe, what am I trying to say? I think maybe we think it's more dire than it is, whereas they made it seem like they felt pretty good about it. I think, is that a fair assessment from that?
My recall was that Ron was excited that they're going to be up to speed on hired wardens at about that time or just shortly after we met. So that was a good accomplishment to have that. Maybe you can update that status. Seems to be where he was at that time.
Yeah, I think I wasn't at the last meeting, but that I know we're almost fully staffed with wardens right now. That's a separate, issue than needing more FTE. I think that's what he was sharing probably at the time, is that we were almost fully staffed.
Which was, if I recall, increasing by 14 or so where it had been.
Yeah.
That they had been down that many for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
We may have also asked for a guesstimate on what an ideal magic wand would be, which is probably just that. And that was maybe one more per county. I don't know.
Yeah, it was something like that. So, I mean, the point of all that and revisiting that was just to say that, I think it is good to always ask for and look at, what we need down the road, but it seems like they're pretty okay with where they're at currently.
Okay.
As I recall me asking Ron about that, they were getting to the point where they were full staffed, but they would take more FTE to put more on the ground. So
yeah.
I really like the idea of asking for more FTE.
And I have no issues with that either.
Okay. I don't know, Ray, are you picking us up now, Ray? Can't hear you if you are. Give you a second there. Or pop on and I'll recall you. Donna, your input?
No, I agree with everyone that we really need to support this, and stand behind those. And so, no, I think great comments, and I really don't have much to add.
Cindy?
No, I'm on board.
Thank you. Stephanie?
I'm on board as well. Thank you.
Paul?
I'm on board also.
Okay. And I didn't hear Ray get back on. I think he's trying from what we see. Okay. So then the question is, it seems like we probably need to, in my experience in the past with this particular question is, we may want to have some conference or discussion, not conference, with the legislator, to see how we might actually put something forward. And that's where this was addressed, is to the legislature, because it is in appropriation. Is that correct?
It would be, I mean, it starts with our subcommittee, or the Section C subcommittee.
So if we wanted to put this forward, which it appears we do, how would we do that best?
Well, again, I'm gonna bang the drum here for the agency. I think the agency knows where we need the FTE the most, and we only have so much, capital to ask for. I'm not sure what's going to be going to the governor's office yet, in terms of what FTE and where we're asking. It might be enforcement, it might be access, it might be ComEd. I mean, if you guys want us to continue marketing these programs and putting information out there, maybe it's ComEd that we need FTE. So in terms of you moving this forward, you could see what we come up with and either support it, in testimony at the legislature. If you disagree with what we put forward, you can always ask a legislature, and this would end up being in either Section C subcommittee or appropriations, to make an amendment to our budget request and make an amendment to the FTE request. So I guess that's really your two options there, is supporting what we put forward or making an amendment to what we put forward.
Excuse me, Cindy?
I just have a question of clarification. Do our recommendations go through the EQC first?
They would be, well, it depends where we direct that. But if it is made to the governor through the department and then to the legislature, both, pretty simultaneously, I guess you'd say. So our requirement is we report to both. Does that help?
Sure.
Okay. Everett?
Yeah, I would just say certainly our recommendations are at the mercy of the whim of the officials. And I don't say that lightly. I just say that we do not have an authority to direct you to do something. But I do think it's important that as a collective, we have said we want more FTE in certain areas, and to move forward with those recommendations. If they get lost somewhere along the lines, yes, certainly as private citizens, we have our own ways of moving through the system. But I think as we've talked for the past couple of years, education and enforcement, these are two really big areas that we feel are definitely needing more help. And I would love to see 8 and 9 move forward as recommendations for more FTE.
Thank you, Everett. Other comments? Any additional input? Okay. So everybody was on for 8 and subsequently 9. So as I see this, I'll restate it. Looks like we need to reflush these out. Probably one of each, but somehow a connection between the two. And as Everett was talking, I just wrote down PLPW season. Here's the need for more FTE, and maybe we fill that out. How we've indicated that, or how we've come to that through our discussions with landowners through this time. And then also, I think we can talk with a couple of legislators, maybe some that aren't currently elected even, just to get some guidance on it. So I would propose that that's how we handle that, along with what Deb just indicated. We consider what the department is going to bring forward once we can see that. So if we are all in unison with that, I would just say, because we've got a lot to flesh out there. If you have an opposition to that approach, raise your hand. Everett, your hand's up. So if you have an opposition to that approach with this question, then raise your hand. Drew's hand up?
No, that's a cursor.
That's a cursor.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we finish that, do you have any other comment or input in that regard?
No, I mean, it's your recommendation, and what you do after that, would be the next steps with the legislature. Yeah. So, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So then back up to 7. Actually, before we do 7, did any of you have other recommendations that you thought were missed in this to bring forward? We've got about 15 minutes before public comment time. So did anybody have another recommendation they had on their plate that we've discussed that we missed here? Dale?
So this may be tied into 7 or to other, or it may be a standalone recommendation. Some of the discussion we had at our last meeting and in previous meetings, we've talked about how some of these programs, and I know it was set up by the legislature that allowed landowners to participate in multiple programs and be paid for different programs. But at the end of the day, I think the question was raised, when we allow a landowner or when a landowner enrolls in different programs, is there a benefit to the public or to access? And do we need a recommendation for further analysis of this, and whether it's PALA and block management, or either the programs and a conservation easement that may be in place on the same parcel that provides for a certain number of hunter days. I mean, there's a lot of different scenarios where a landowner is being paid multiple times, and I'm not sure the public is getting additional benefits through the additional programs. And again, we talked about that. Is it something that as a council, we want to make a recommendation to the department or to the legislature and look at? And that's the only one that I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dale. Anyone else? Okay, so I guess my thought, Dale, on commenting on yours, that probably does fit within item 7 for our discussion. And this I put on there just as a future task, and part of it what prompted me was looking at the SOPs that have been updated and what's entailed in those SOPs, maybe paralleling them somewhat to review all the key programs that are being used. So then in my mind, that's Block, PALA, and EHAs, not to disregard the others, but that's where the heavy use is. So I just see that, that could be a future task, could even be in August, and maybe out of that, we would come up with another recommendation or two upon comparing those programs side by side. I mean, we've done it pretty good over the last year and a half, 2 years. And then some of the changes and some of the deals that we've looked at in comparison have created other questions, as you sort of alluded to there, Dale. So yeah, that would, to me, in my mind, that would bring us to 7 and put it in there. Some of the questions were the sideboards that we had a little concern about in the last meeting with PALA, and whether we need to explore those again. Paul brought them up, Dale brought them up, others brought them up in those kind of overlaps. Also, I think both, and Paul brought this up in an email to Jason about the question of Block providing the inclusion of public access. I mean, in the beginning, Block always has acquired public access. It's applied a little differently than PALA. And so those were things we had talked about, and maybe we need to have that further discussion about those potentially at the next meeting.
Could I add one more comment, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
This pertains to 7. It also pertains to 2. And it's not a discussion point that we've had. So I made a note on it, and maybe it's a discussion for our August meeting. I don't have the table that Jason or Deb has provided to us in past meetings, but it had a list of all of the different access programs. And then it had the number of participants that are in them. There's a couple of them, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say they had less than 5 participants and have had less than 5 participants statewide for several years. Would it be prudent for this council to look at some of those at the August meeting and possibly make a recommendation to the legislature that those programs be sunsetted? Thank you.
Jason will best address that, I think, in regards to the sunsets and yeah. No.
Well,
and others.
The Unlocking Public Lands program is scheduled to sunset in 2027. There's some other things that are going on with that right now that may affect that or not. But, you know, from my perspective, I think, Dale, your point is well taken. Part of it ties right back into the conversation we had for number 8, where there's only so many things that you can do, and you know, you pick and choose which ones you're gonna really actively pursue, and a lot of times those with low participation are just ones that fell into our lap where a landowner is looking for a solution and we have a need. We're not actively pursuing, trying to grow some of those things, or it's a enforcement issue, as has been discussed with you know, biennial rule recreation management areas, looking to expand to year-round recreation for private property, and how we would even be able to enforce that. So there's kind of really there's a lot of options. It's just a matter of pick and choose which ones we can pursue, and so it all ties together. But there may be some, Dale, to your point, that we, you know, aren't fitting the need for a landowner per se. And that's why you're seeing the low enrollments, but oftentimes it's just, you know, we're going to pick and choose and try and keep block management running at the same time running everything else. So.
What'd you think, Dale?
You know, appreciate that feedback. And again, I don't know if there is really even a role for PLPW, but again, when you have all those different access programs that go into our report to the governor and to the legislature, they're out there, and yeah, there may not be much interest in them, but there's still a requirement for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to report on them, to gather the data on them, and I don't know, maybe that smorgasbord has just got too many items in it right now, and for the sake of the department, for the sake of the cooperators and the sportsmen, I don't know, there may be a role for our council to say, you know what, we just don't see this as a program that has a lot of validity. We'd like the legislature to consider doing away with that. I think if we provided that kind of recommendation, it would give them some thought, or I mean, some credence in that they would have it come from a recognized group and saying, yeah, we have all these programs, we keep adding programs, but maybe we need to get rid of some as well.
Thanks, Dale. Additional comments? Questions? So, to Dale's point, in a little different background, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, we had been contacted by the legislative audit side on, particularly Dale, on the Unlocking Public Lands program, which was the one you referred to that has the lowest participation. And I think the thing that is real evident to us anyways is that PALA, I mean, I probably shouldn't use this word, but sort of made it irrelevant. Somebody may not think that, but it seems in practicality, PALA made that irrelevant, because PALA has certainly produced much more interest, and it's a better program for the landowner. So, as Jason mentioned, that in the legislation is designed to sunset in 27, they're going to have a comment on that. Who knows what it'll be? It may behoove us to actually make that statement as a recommendation that it be allowed to sunset. I don't know, because it seems to me, talking about all these programs, and what Jason was talking about with, you know, we have a lot of time, we've all been concerned about time that access coordinators must comply and deal with. Is it commensurate to the success of the program? Probably not. You know, each clearly block is the most effective overall. I mean, 700 days, 700,000 100 days, and it probably takes less administrative time to quantify it all per agreement than, let's just say, EHAs as an example. You see the EHA report, it's as long as the whole block SOP. So maybe that's the discussion we have next month, is again, like you mentioned, paralleling these programs, looking at them again, and coupling them with two to make a more firm recommendation about all that. Maybe that's kind of the way to tie them together. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, two is the bringing all the programs together, but as we look at them side by side and what they all offer, and then why a cooperator picks it, and then there's some challenges within that, if we recall, who gets a permit, who gets a tag, etc., and why they choose it. So maybe it's a prime opportunity to set those together to simplify the process in how you pick it and how it's applied. What do you think, Dale?
Well, I think some iteration of that has some real value, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so any additional comment or suggestion within 7 and such? And that again is just that we bring that forward as our next discussion, not necessarily with that task of different recommendations, but if they come out of that, then we would formulate those at that time and potentially bring them. So the EQC would be the first, and that's currently scheduled for September 16th. So that'd barely give them time to help us put something together if we had something additional. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I think your concept is headed in the right direction. Typically, we've also had like an in-person meeting in December, and so I think, you know, that gives you time. If we were to really flush this out, like an in-person meeting in December, that you could still have this as a concept in your report, but then really get into the details of it in that December meeting. That would then, you know, give you time to look at potential legislative fixes, if there are any that need to happen. It'd also be far enough in advance of next year's program cycle. So if we did have changes, you could make that still within the next calendar year.
Okay.
I don't think having an in-depth discussion of where you're going with this would probably be ready.
Finalized by August.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody on that page? So to restate it, we begin to flesh this out in August, and then with the goal of having an in-depth look by a December meeting to really look through it singularly. Yeah. Okay. So if nobody objects to that, 7, we'll discuss again in August, and then try to bring that forward in December fully amongst all those programs, and then potentially tying it into 2. So if you have an objection to that, please indicate by raising your hand. And if you don't, we'll move that forward in that manner. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. So again, that's the 7 or 8 we had brought forward. Is there anything else outside of these that you would like to bring up at this time? And we're right at public comment time, but want to make sure you have that opportunity if you do have something additional. Okay, seeing none. Do we have, or who do we have on for public comment?
So Mr. Chair, Jaden Ewert, our admin, and upstairs in our POR office is gonna facilitate public comment. And right now we only have one member of the public who wishes to comment. So I'll let Jaden take over and facilitate that piece of it.
Yep. So can you guys hear me?
Yes.
For anyone that is on right now and wishes to make public comment, go ahead and raise your hand so I can call on you. I'm not getting a hand raised. Give a little more time if they do want to comment still or not.
Okay.
All right, there's no hand raised at this time for public comment.
All right, thank you, Jaden. Okay, so our next item is home reports and then future meeting schedule. So start with home reports. Rich, would you like to start us out?
Not a lot to report, Mr. Chairman, other than what I mentioned from the Gordons about the, the outhouse, for those fishing places. Maybe just a brief update. We've had some good moisture up here. Grasshoppers are spotty, but where there aren't very many, but where there are lots. And so quite a bit of worry, concern there. We had during some of these last showers. I don't know if they had all around the state, but in our area we had some pretty tough hail storms that came through from Denton, Montana, all the way through up to Havre. Some people reporting 100% loss in crops where that hit. So that was pretty good, but wildlife looks good out there. I've been out collecting bugs for leafy spurge all over the place, and so just looking at grasses and wildlife that I've seen, bird populations, again, no biologist here, but seemingly good, and seeing wildlife out and about as well. So in our country here in the Bear Paws, I think like I said, it's been an okay year for a start, and grass and water, and I think we're doing okay, but we hit 101 yesterday. So we're supposed to hit that again today here. So we've got probably 2 weeks of 90+ temps, and it'll turn brown. So that's fire danger will be certainly a very big concern at hunting season this year, as it is every year, but certainly looking at the grass, looks like that'll be a big thing this year. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Rich. Everett? If you're speaking, you're muted, Everett. Okay, let's jump to Rod.
Not much to report here. A lot like Rich, we had a great start, a lot of rain. Temperatures were phenomenal until about 3 days ago. Like now, I think we're 104 or something right now. And it's going to turn brown. Wildlife's doing good. A lot of concern out there amongst our landowning community here about enforcement and our county attorney not wanting to prosecute FWP citations, which we can't have that. So I'm trying to facilitate a meeting to get everybody sat down in a room and get this deal hashed out. So we actually have some enforcement, and I'm trying to back the wardens. They're trying to do a good job. They do a great job but if nobody will prosecute, what the hell good is it? So, yeah, working on that. But no, wildlife looks great. We had a good hatch on our antelope. Elk are obviously doing good. Deer, par. So, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, and good on you for taking action to make it happen in your county there. So
we have to. I mean, I've got a great communication or a great relationship with some commissioners here. Obviously, this isn't about me. It's not about my landowners. It's about every landowner up here. We need to have enforcement. So somebody's got to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Donna?
Well, I don't have a lot to report. Ed, thank you for going to that elk management plan. I hear that was a really good meeting, and so those types of meetings are very useful. Hopefully we can get more of those around the state. I'm also on that wildlife conflict committee for the Ruby Valley Strategic Alliance, and right now we're working on, like all of us, trying to delist the grizzly bears and working on some of the wolf problems in our area. So nothing really to report other than a continual job working on those things. Haven't heard much from our ranching community. They're all busy baling and doing their summer chores. So thanks so much, and that's about it for me.
Thank you, Donna. Yeah, and thanks for inviting me there. It was, God, it was a beautiful drive down there that day, and just seeing everything down there. It was a month ago, so it was extremely green, and yeah, I couldn't get all the bugs off my windshield. But what a great group of people, and very interesting set of problems they have to deal with there. Brucellosis isn't something that everybody deals with statewide to the degree that they do, and you could sure see the stress that it creates on those folks down there. So glad they have some strong working relationships to, for the most part, mitigate their challenges. It's good to see. Dale.
Well, just a couple of things. Rich had mentioned the grasshoppers. We have plenty of grasshoppers in southeast Montana, and but we also had a nice spring, and so vegetation was relatively plentiful. But these 100-degree days, it is going to turn brown, and I do expect, if the weather continues, we will start hearing some landowners come September saying, well, let's put a halt on people coming out until conditions change. I've seen a lot of antelope fawns. I haven't been out in areas where I would typically see a lot of mule deer, but the antelope fawns we had a good crop. I did have one person call me, and he knows that it's not in the purview of PLPW, but he wanted me to at least bring it to the attention of this council. And he's an archery elk hunter in 700, and he just said, I just want PLPW to know that in his opinion, the number of bull elk and especially the number of quality bull elk in 700 up in the breaks has just dropped dramatically in the last few years. And he's also a federal land biologist. So I take what he says with a little bit more confidence, because he spends a lot of time up there outside of hunting. That's his area of responsibility. So he does spend a lot of time up there, and there's not really an action item, but he asked me if I would relay that information to the council. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Paul.
Oh, don't have a lot. I would like to see the PLPW kind of do a better job of reporting the positive impacts that we're having on these access programs, the PALA, the 454, the block management, especially how it's opened up a lot of landlocked property, public grounds. The other thing I'm hearing a lot of attack on the non-residents. I don't see a huge increase in non-residents, maybe other than cow hunters and you know, to me, non-residents are paying 73% of the fish and game budget, and over 90% of the block management funds come from non-residents. So unless we can all step up and pay a lot more for our fees, I think we need to work with the non-residents somewhat too, instead of making them the devils. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Stephanie.
I don't have a whole lot to report. What I've seen, I mean, it's still pretty green here, but like Rich was saying, it's getting hot and stuff will start turning brown. Seen lots and lots of bull elk, lots of antelope. I'm again no biologist, but it seems like a lot of recovery around here. I've been seeing a lot more mule deer too, which is really exciting. So hopefully we're starting to turn that corner as well. So that's about it.
Thanks, Stephanie. Cindy?
Not too much. Some concern about ATV use, especially on areas they shouldn't be, but with the dry conditions we're starting to really get here. And there was somebody stated to me some concerns about confusion in the district combinations that we've done this year. We'll see what happens with that. See if people are confused. That's all.
Thank you, Cindy. Back to Everett.
No, I've been traveling a lot this summer, so I've been out of pocket a whole lot, and it's kind of unusual for me. So I know we've got our new Region 2 supervisor, and looking forward to working with Kendra a little bit more. But also looking forward to legislative session and things that are kind of starting to pop up a little bit and what those might mean. So it's only July, but that stuff's already happening. So I don't know. Otherwise, yeah, just hoping that fire season kind of stays away a little bit longer and maybe we get some rain or something. But I don't have much more to add.
Okay, thank you. Did I miss anybody?
I thought I'd get to sneak away without doing one of these, Ed.
I only missed the guy that thinks it's winter in eastern Montana. Go ahead, Drew.
From folks in my area and sphere, I still hear lots of chatter about mule deer. No need to go in great depth there. Believe it or not, some of our big game seasons fire up in just barely over a month. So I'm starting to hear from some of those early archery hunters, and they're the ones that I probably hear the most chatter about, just in terms of this time of year, about all the issues, right? So the deer issue, the pressure issue, whether that's this group or that group. Most recently, I heard from one person concerning the 454 program, and in your My FWP, that drop down menu, and there's a list of all those to check. And to that person, it was confusing because there was a list of them, and they felt like they didn't have information on like what those places were. And so I was trying to walk them through that and get them information. And I think back to one of our conversations and our recommendations about consolidating and making this information more accessible. It was really top of mind there. One other thing that I hear lots of chatter about is not a Montana issue, but it's kind of a Montana issue. And Everett, talks to me and others about this with Howell, but we hear a lot of this biology happening at the ballot box, and there's been some recent legislation pop up in concern to predators and taking away some of those predator hunting opportunities in other states. So I've just heard that from a few folks out in the field. Yeah, other than that, I could give the same weather report, but it would just be redundant. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Drew. Appreciate it. Rod?
Just back to Dale's comment, and nothing against Dale, but I know exactly the person that he's talking about. He's trying to make my life miserable. And what he says about quality of bulls up here, he's 100% wrong. The quality of bulls are still great on public or on private, not so good on public. Yeah, so I guess I would like to disagree with that. And I know exactly what he's talking about. So anyway, nothing against Dale, but that's where we are. So that's all.
All right, Rod, thank you. Okay, my turn. So a little while ago, like not even a month ago, it was all about walleyes. Walleye fishing was the hot thing around here. Had a tournament, some big fish caught on Canyon Ferry. And then it's been kokanee on Holter. I shouldn't even say it, so I won't say what the size is. But kokanee have come back well in this area, so for fishing, it's a good thing. And they're in a big lake, so water temperature just drives them down, but it doesn't threaten them. So we're kind of fortunate over here for that. And then of course grizzlies. Everybody's seen a new grizzly. Had a new grizzly picture from just west of the divide here of a really pretty young grizzly bear. Very blonde, gold, and dark on the bottom, so nice young bear. A little video and footage, even including the road sign nearby. But unfortunately now it's definitely wildfires, and as you all mentioned, dry. I mean, we were all happy on Monday, and Tuesday we're all, smoked up and fearful and concerned about how dry it is and how easy it is for somebody to make a mistake and it'd be very costly. So yeah, that changed right now. So I hope you guys all get pockets of rain wherever you need them. We had a little thunder this morning, and I live out in the woods, and it wasn't a great feeling. Luckily, there was a little spit of rain and definitely more humidity. So that we'll see how that looks now that we get out of here, because it was calm this morning for a bit. So yeah, definitely I hear a fair bit about people being concerned about what's going to happen with hunting and mule deer and season changes and such. So nothing specific, just kind of a general murmur about it at this point in time. So we'll see where all that goes. And I know there's a number of groups working on different things in that aspect. So I think that's about it for me. One thought I had as you were all talking, Rich, with contacts about the ponds and access, and then all of us, when people make a comment to us, I think it'd be nice for us to think about where we can send that comment. That'd be most helpful. So ponder so they can get that information directly, whether it's a biologist in your area or access coordinator. It's probably helpful for them to know, and maybe they already know. And of course, to bring them here to bring them out, I think is good. But if it's helpful to bring them to those folks in those areas, consider that too. So, all right. So the last item we have is future meeting schedule. So if we could possibly look at an August meeting date, and then potentially jumping forward to December. So if you have your calendars handy, let's look at August. I would like to throw mine out right away if I could, because I'm really, really full up with travels in August for my business. So jumping ahead to the last week, the week of the 26th, just seeing if there's any consensus among us for a meeting that last week of August. I guess starting with Jason, how that might look.
Well, we can do any format you guys want to do. I mean, if you wanted an in-person meeting, we could do that. I don't know that that's necessary at this point. My thought is I'd like to get your guys' report draft at least put together for you somewhere, obviously before your meeting. I'm not sure how far in advance it will be, just given the fact that it's already pretty much the middle of July and we're into block season. Are you looking for a date, or are you looking for a format, or what do you need from me?
So I think looking at the agenda, clearly it would be the final draft wording on that report. So that would be the must-do agenda item. And then secondarily, it would be that question 7, beginning to look at the side-by-side comparison in item 7. Was there something else additionally at that point?
I don't have
So,
anything else.
so if we nail it down to the finalization of the report, certainly we could do that in a Zoom meeting. I think if we get into the discussion in any detail at all on the other, then it probably would need to be more than that. Does anybody have a strong preference for a half-day Zoom meeting or a full day or half-day meeting in August? Any strong recommendation there from anyone? I know we're all going to be very, very busy right then. Rod?
I like this format. I know it's not about me, but at that time everybody's busy, and I think December is a better time to have it in person. But this time of year can be pretty difficult for any of us in the landowner, the ranching community, farming community, whatever the case is, outfitting community. Again, it's not about us, but I'm just saying I think this works great. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Rod. Dale?
I like the face-to-face meetings, but I also very much recognize the challenges of the landowner community and everything that they have going on, and a lot of other working people. So if it ends up that we do a Zoom meeting, I'm okay with that. I think face-to-face are more effective, but I get it, and I'll make whatever work. For me, I'll go with whatever the group decides.
Thank you, Dale. Any other comment? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would love to have us in person meetings as often as possible, because they're definitely more time to be connected to it, and I think it's very effective. Considering that this is primarily this focus at that time, I would just suggest we go forward with a Zoom half day, and then just pick a date, and then go into December for a full meeting at that time. So, so just picking days. You want me to just pick a day, Jason?
I would say Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday are probably the best for me. Mondays are always hard.
So let's pick, how does it look for the 28th of August? That is a Wednesday, obviously dead set in the middle. So if you can't do Wednesday the 28th, raise your hand on Zoom there. Okay. All right.
Ed,
Yeah.
I'm out all of August in Africa, so it doesn't matter to me what date.
Well, they have Zoom in Africa, Everett. I mean, come on.
They do.
I'm
Right.
here.
We do have Starlink there too, but I can't
All right.
commit to say that.
So you're out on August anyway. All right, so you don't count, Everett. I would have counted you, but you don't. So it looks like everybody else at this point in time can do August 28th. And I'll just ask, is the morning version work generally for everybody? If the answer is no, please raise your hand.
I can only do morning if you want me here.
So staff-wise, it's better for the morning. So it appears everybody's good with the morning. So we'll set Wednesday, August 28th. It's going to be 8:30, and we'll go to noon, unless it looks like there's more to add to that agenda. But at this point, the agenda will be primarily as we discussed. Okay. So then jumping ahead to December for a potential full-on meeting, everybody present. Do you folks have an open month?
The only thing I was thinking of is that stock growers is, I think, the first week, so Rich is probably out. I'm out.
I'm out until the 16th.
Okay. So let's look at, so that'd be a week before Christmas. So the week of the 16th, if you're not available during that week, please raise your hand. Drew. Okay, Drew's out the 16th.
Rod is too.
And Rod's out. So that's for the whole week of the 16th, Drew and Rod.
I'll be coming back from a trip on that week. I don't know. Coming back from Tajikistan.
My anniversary is the 18th, I think. So I should pray. Oh.
Might want to have that clear, Rod.
And then we have a MOGA meeting, usually sometime the first part of December. We haven't decided, but whatever.
Okay.
And there's a commission meeting on the Thursday.
On Thursday the 19th.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking at potentially Drew and Rod. Drew doesn't know. Rod thinks he can't be there the 18th. Okay. How does I guess Donna would be out the week before, the 9th through 13th.
I may be able to Zoom in, so I would just do my best.
Okay. Anybody else cannot do, let's say, around the 11th?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm pretty sure I didn't have it pulled. I think I'm at Stock Growers Annual Convention in Billings. Jason, you actually might have the calendar there. I heard you say something earlier, but I don't have it on my calendar yet.
I think it's the week earlier, Rich. The week before that, the first week of December is what I have.
Oh, you're right, Jason. Actually, you're right. I think it is. So okay, yep.
Okay. So Dale, you're out on the week of the 9th through 13th, correct?
I could do the 9th or 10th, but I need to be home the 11th, 12th, 13th.
Okay. So it's looking like it would be the 9th. Anybody else out on the 9th, 10th of December?
Drew is.
Drew. So we got 2 on the 9th, 10th. Okay. And we had 2 potentially on the middle week, right? So
Again, Dale, I can make whatever work. It's
you know what?
always joking.
Let's all have a Christmas party on the 24th and 5th, and we'll all get together. Oh, darn, then we're missing the access boss.
Access somebody.
Okay, let's, where did that boil down to? We're about even.
We can do a poll too, if that's helpful.
So we're going to do that. We're gonna pick 2 days and we'll see where we end up best. And it looks like it's probably the 9th, 10th, 16th, 17th.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll pick a couple dates there and send a poll out, and then we'll pick one. All right?
And you're looking at the afternoon of the first day and the morning of the second day again, as far as a format?
I think so. Yeah, especially in the winter.
Do you have a location you'd like to have it?
I mean, to me, staff-wise, that's a big one, probably here. Unless we centrally Great Falls. So we'll look at whether Great Falls or Helena, trying to centralize it a little bit for December travel. Okay. Okay. All right. So we'll get back on a doodle poll or whatever for the December meeting. Any final comments? I'm just going to roll through everybody. Rich, any final comment for today?
Sorry, no comment. I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, thank Rich. Everett?
Nope, said enough. Thanks so much.
Rod?
Oh, all good. Thank you, guys. All good meeting. So thank you.
Drew?
Good to go. Thank you, Ed. Mr.
Hey,
Chairman.
Donna?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Dale?
I'm good, thanks.
Cindy?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Nope, thank you.
Paul?
No, good to go. Thanks, everybody. Have a good summer.
All right. Well, thank you all for getting here. I know crazy busy, just a whole lot going on all the time, as we can see. So I appreciate your dedication and getting on here and all of your discussion. I will get back with a few of you on those questions we had on our recommendations and wording and such. I made some notes on some of you folks to make sure we include that. And then we'll get that out pretty quick because it's 2 weeks away from 2 weeks away. So again, appreciate everybody. Best to you in the coming weeks here of summer, and hope everything goes good and nothing bad comes our way in weather and all those variables. So thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Forgot to call on you guys.